Hi, my name is Etta Grace, and welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today I am interviewing Avery Lawrence, who is the author of Last Light. I really enjoyed this book. It was a 5 out of 5 for me, and the review is up on my blog right now. So today we are going to be chatting about the story. Avery, would you like to introduce yourself and what you write?
Hi, I'm Avery Lawrence, or A. Lawrence, which is my author name. I wrote Last Light. I also write a series called Ghost Punch, which is like a supernatural horror esque comedy series. It's kind of hard to explain. And yeah, that's what I write.
Cool. So, Last Light is a story about Andy, who is an archive witch, and she teams up with her friends Blythe and Lexa to go save the world by investigating a library tree to free the world from a vampiric plague that's going on. And free the darkness from the sky, and stop this apocalyptic event from happening. And so, how did you come up with the world of Last Light?
Um, well, I've always wanted to write a vampire story. And I've had the idea for Andy as a witch meeting a vampire for a very long time, like an embarrassing amount of time. Um, and the title Last Light actually came from a really stupid joke that I made with some friends about I was trying to come up with really stupid horror movie names, and one of them was Last Light 7. And but I actually liked the title Last Light, and so I was thinking about a world of vampires and darkness, and I've always wanted to write a library tree. I think that libraries and trees go together, so I decided to just mash them together, and that's kind of how the world came about.
That's super fun. I thought it was super like epic and dramatic, and so I think it's funny that you describe it as like a dumb horror movie idea because I was like I have such a vivid like imagery imagination in my head where I was seeing this as like an animated movie where like it starts off with like all these you talk about these sun lamps, and so like you start off with like this ambient like spooky like castle lighting as you're moving through this library tree, but then like as they go through the different levels and they climb the tree to get to the top, like the lights start going out, and at the very end it's just like Andy holding her lantern and it's the last light, and it's all thematic and epic and stuff. So I don't know, I really loved it. I was saying before we started the interview that you were targeting me specifically with the idea of a library tree. So I don't know, I think it's really fun. But the design of the library tree makes the story feel like a dungeon crawl. They have to go through these different levels as they climb the tree. So, how did you come up with the unique encounters for each level, and do you have a favorite one?
Um, lots of outlining. uh and like just as they like enter place, I was like, what would I want it to be like if this was my library? And so like I had the area that was just a bunch of books, and then the area that was basically like a natural history museum, which is probably my favorite level of the whole thing. um and I really liked like the giant greenhouse inside of it. So those are probably my favorite levels. But yeah, it's just mostly what would I like my magical library that's inside of a tree to have inside of it for each level.
The magical greenhouse level specifically reminded me of uh, Lapita from Castle in the Sky because of the robots.
Yeah.
I thought that was super fun. I don't know if you've seen Castle in the Sky by Studio Ghibli, but that's what that reminded me of.
Yeah, that was a big inspo for me.
Oh, okay, cool. um, so my next question is that vampires and werewolves feature heavily in the story, and they have so many different traits across all of literature. So how did you pick the strengths and weaknesses for the characters in this story specifically?
Honestly, like I wrote the rough draft and then kind of picked what I liked from my rough draft. It's a terrible way to do things. Don't do it my way. Um, but I knew that I wanted it to be that like Lexa hadn't transformed for a really long time, and I wanted like Blythe to be able to like heal very fast and things like that, along with Lexa. Um, so that's kind of how it went. Is I was just like, well, what do they need? What would be a good hindrance as I was writing? So
What works, works.
what works works.
So I assume you're more of like a discovery writer than a plotter. How many drafts did you have to go through for this story? I know that's not a question. I'm just curious. You don't have to answer that if you don't want to. We can move on.
I've about two drafts. Because when I was writing it, like I just hit this groove, and I wrote the whole book in like 3 weeks. And then
Wow, that's very impressive.
I came back to rewrite it because I always rewrite everything that I write, and like I just like hit the groove again and like did it again all in like 3 weeks, and I was like, Who am I? What is happening?"
That's amazing.
Thank you. But yeah, it was about like two drafts, and then I went through and like did line editing and stuff.
Cool. So my next question is getting more into the individual characters. Since I've talked about the lore building so far, um, now we're getting into our protagonist. Andy is an archive witch. We introduced her a little bit before, and so she's tasked with saving the library. So, what was your favorite part about writing her character and her struggle as kind of the last bastion of humanity's knowledge?
Probably like I love the idea of having like an archive that you can just access. So I really liked writing that because I would love to have a reference library in my head. Like that's the ultimate goal, honestly, for anyone, but it's never going to happen. So I really liked writing that. But my favorite part, probably about Andy, is that she hates it when people are wrong, and so she'll correct them even if they're joking, because that's something that I do. And so it was really fun to give that to a protagonist.
Yeah, she spends so much of the book info dumping, and I think it's a really cute, especially in the scenes when they're in the natural history museum parts of things. There's so many like plants and animals there, and she's such a nerd, and she has so much of this unbridled enthusiasm contained within her. Um, it's really fun. In one of my stories, as a character who info dumps about plants and knows all their like scientific names, and it really reminded me of Hannah in my story. So I really related to Andy there.
I love characters that info dump, so it was a lot of fun to write one.
Um, and do you mind sharing a bit about her archive witch magic and how that manifests? Because I thought that was a really cool visual effect how you described the archive
Um, so I'm trying to remember. It's been a hot minute since I wrote this book. Uh,
as like
I
the magic sand.
so when she's just accessing it, like you can't really tell from the outside. Um, but to her, it's kind of like a giant like library catalog, and she just has to pull the right thing. And then when she's actually scanning a book in, it looks like golden sand.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. In some of the art that I'd seen for it, the magic sand effect I thought was a really
Thank
cool
you.
visual. She's accompanied by two friends, Blythe, who's a bit of an anti-hero at first. She's a vampire, and then Lexa, who's the werewolf and Andy's childhood best friend. So, how did you approach balancing these two characters' personalities and their roles in the story and their relationships with each other and with Andy?
Honestly, like when I write, like the characters kind of take control of like whatever I'm writing. I know a lot of authors probably really relate to that. Um, and so it was almost effortless getting them to balance out. And I really enjoyed writing them.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
um, obviously like there were rewrites and like that really helped me be like, okay, well in this part we have a lot of Lexas, so let's like, balance that out with a lot of Blythe here.
Yeah, there's certain parts where like one of them will go missing or they have to split the party in order to handle certain parts of the dungeon. And so that gives you more one-on-one interactions with one or the other of the characters. But um, you have to balance that out with, bringing the other one back around at certain points. So I think you do that pretty well.
Thank you.
Um, and Blythe and Lexa don't get along at first. So how did you handle like the two of them growing to work with each other?
Well, obviously by like the end of the story, they still don't really like each other, but they're willing to put aside their differences because they both care about Andy. And so like that had to be like the most important thing to them was that getting along for Andy's sake.
Mm-hmm. Despite Blythe's tenuous role as an antihero and a vampire, she and Andy also develop a close relationship over the course of the story. So, how did you build the chemistry and the trust between the two of them? There's a bit of a romantic subplot, so if you'd like to talk about that, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I always meant for it to be like a romantic subplot between them. Um, so it was just a matter of like figuring out like what their goals were, what their differences were, and then having them come together as the story drew to an end.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know
Yeah,
that they have.
and
Sorry, go ahead.
and just like it was very easy to like get their chemistry going once they like started to get along.
Mm-hmm. There's another sidekick character, Bertrand, and how do you keep track of him? He's a character that they pick up in the library. He has a very intimate working knowledge of the library because he was around before the library got shut down. So, how do you keep track of him and keep his knowledge from making the protagonist's journey too easy?
A lot of times like he just doesn't know. Um, and like him not having access to his own because he was an archive witch when he was alive. Just spoilers. Uh, and so him not having access to that really helps um, make it not too easy. Um, Honestly, like in the first draft, I would forget about him all the time. I added him like on a whim, and I was like, I remember I put in a note and I was like, I'll probably write him out, but for now he's fun. And then I ended up loving him so much, I was like, never mind, he's in the story forever.
That's very relatable. I have a sidekick character as well who um, kind of filled that role in Runaways. But at first it was a pet, but I couldn't keep track of a pet dog, so I had to make it more of a sidekick that had more of character in the story and give it a job to do because otherwise I wouldn't keep track of it.
Yeah, it helps that he's so small, so like if he's gone, like most people probably aren't going to notice.
Mm-hmm. And we're nearing the end of the interview now, so I always like to include a freebie question. So if there's anything that I missed that you'd like to talk about, you feel free to ramble about it here. This is always something I like to include to give my authors a chance to talk about anything I missed.
um Sorry, I'm thinking. uh
All good. Take your time.
yeah, I really loved writing this book. I've thought about maybe writing a sequel. I haven't committed to it yet, but I guess it depends on if people like this one enough. Um, but yeah, I really loved writing this book. I love the romantic subplot, and I really like Lexa a lot. Um, Birdie's obviously my favorite character, but I really liked like the magic system they came up with, and like if I ever wrote a sequel, I would really like to explore it more.
Would the sequel take place in the library as Andy is rebuilding it?
I actually had a completely different idea where she would have to like go around and find other libraries and reconnect them.
Ooh, I really like that. I really, really
Thank
like
you.
that. That would be cool. I imagine other libraries would have different constructions and other kind of hazards.
Exactly.
So it'd be a series of different like dungeon crawls.
Yes.
That would be so much fun. Well, I wish you the best of luck with that. What else
Thank
do
you.
you have coming up, and where can we find you and your work online? I know you said you were writing a series called Ghost Punch, so do you mind talking a bit about that?
Yeah, Go Punch is the story of Shay, who is a college dropout who lives in a tiny town in Idaho, which is fake. Don't try and look up Teton Falls; it's not real. Um, but she finds out that not only are ghosts real, but she has the ability to touch them and make them like a physical presence. Um, and that's why it's called Ghost Punch, because she's like, well, if I can touch ghosts, then I can punch ghosts. But it's a series, and it like has like a queer cast. She meets up with like an amnesiac ghost of a Victorian man who like strangely only remembers things about like the abilities that she has, and it's about her like saving her town and figuring out like what she can do. The third book's actually going to be coming out pretty soon, I think. I just got the cover for it. But you can find the first two books linked on my Tumblr.
That's super fun.
And then I actually just signed on with an agent for a creature feature horror called Strange Paths that I'm really, really excited about vloggers that go looking for cryptids.
Congratulations on signing with an agent. That all
Thank
sounds
you.
super fun. So is Tumblr the best place to find your work then?
Yeah, Tumblr is the best place. I'm kind of on Twitter, but not really. And I sometimes post on Instagram, but Tumblr I'm pretty consistent with.
Awesome, cool. I will be sure to link all of those things in the description of this video and in the transcript. But thank you so much for your time, and thank you for sharing Last Light with us.
Yeah, thank you so much.